Operation Whisper. SAVAK's psychological warfare against opposition. Fear was SAVAK's greatest weapon. While the secret police was known for its brutal arrests, torture chambers, and assassinations, one of its most effective strategies was psychological warfare. Operation Whisper was a campaign of manipulation, intimidation, and misinformation, designed to break opposition movements from within. The goal was simple: make people afraid to speak, afraid to organize, and ultimately, afraid to even think of resisting the Shah's regime. SAVAK understood that brute force alone wasn't enough to control a population. Instead, they infiltrated opposition groups, placing informants within student organizations, labor unions, religious gatherings, and even social circles. These agents didn't just report on dissidents, they worked to create paranoia. Whispers of betrayal, accusations of being government spies, and planted rumors destroyed trust between activists. The movement against the Shah was weakened not just by arrests, but by internal divisions that SAVAK itself had orchestrated. Propaganda was another key tool. SAVAK worked with state-controlled media to discredit opposition leaders. Clerics who criticized the government were accused of being Soviet agents, students who protested were branded as terrorists, and leftist intellectuals were portrayed as Western puppets. The goal was to confuse the public, making it difficult for people to know who to trust. Even some high-profile dissidents had their reputations destroyed, not by imprisonment, but by well-placed lies that turned their own supporters against them. Fear spread into everyday life. The simple act of talking about politics in public became dangerous. People avoided criticizing the Shah, even in their own homes, because no one knew who might be listening. SAVAK cultivated the idea that spies were everywhere. Taxi drivers, shopkeepers, neighbors, and even family members could be informants. This self-censorship was perhaps the agency's most powerful achievement, as it silenced countless voices without the need for arrests. Psychological pressure extended to those already imprisoned. Dissidents were often forced to write public confessions, renouncing their beliefs and praising the Shah. Some were broken through torture, while others were threatened with harm to their families. These confessions were broadcast in newspapers and on state radio, sending a chilling message: even the strongest will submit to the regime. Exiles were not safe either. Iranian dissidents abroad found themselves haunted by anonymous threats, strange phone calls, and mysterious accidents. SAVAK's reach extended to Iranian communities in Europe and the US, ensuring that fear followed dissidents wherever they went. Some activists received letters with detailed descriptions of their family members back home, an unspoken warning that their loved ones could suffer if they continued speaking out. But despite its effectiveness, Operation Whisper failed in the end. By the late 1970s, the sheer size of the revolution made it impossible for SAVAK to control every rumor, every whisper, every act of defiance. The fear that had once kept people silent began to erode. Protests grew, opposition leaders united, and the paranoia that SAVAK had cultivated was replaced with determination. When the revolution finally came, those who had lived in fear for years now stood together, exposing the lies, the spies, and the terror tactics that had once controlled them. The whispers that SAVAK had used to divide its enemies had turned into the chants that brought down the monarchy. And with the fall of the Shah, Operation Whisper, the campaign to silence an entire nation, was finally buried in the rubble of the old regime.